you obviously get it wrong. Avoid using the word population, avoid using the word people. Always stick to settlement. Availability of settlement along road. There are many settlements in the northwestern parts. Stick to the word settlement. And I saw, in fact, that question was in the end of time examination. And many people really got that question wrong because they use the word people and population. Kindly take note of that. The other factor is vegetation. And we have many types of vegetation on a map. We could have a thicket, a forest, woodlands, the riverine no, riverine vegetation. And it is always greenish in color. The observation, and I'm happy quite a number of you have those maps, especially from Dartmouth and Oxford. And I encourage you to have those maps. They're available in school. And the general observation is where we have vegetation, close to the vegetation, there are always very few settlements, or even at times no. What do you think we have scattered or even no settlements around a vegetation? There is always animal-human conflict. We all know that a forest is habitat for all wild animals, and therefore, if you plant your maize close to a forest, you know what will happen. You will always have problems with those animals, and as such, settlements will always try to avoid areas close to a vegetation. And the vegetation here, I'm talking about a forest, because again, scrub can be vegetation, but I'm using vegetation in reference to a thicket, a forest. Yeah, I think those are the most ones. Now on rainfall, allow me to skip for now because I know they will still discuss it in the next. I think it should be Iko Tumbel. Now this still tries to explain or to help us understand how to approach questions on factors that affect settlement. And here we are talking about drainage. Like it is indicated, where we have well-drained soils, there are many settlements. So the question now is, how do you tell that a place is well-drained? And I've explained earlier, where we have moderately spaced contours, those are well-drained soils. And you'll get your 2 marks when you say that. Poorly drained soils. The possibility of getting those soils is where we have a swamp. It could be seasonal or a papyrus swamp. There you will have few, if it is a seasonal swamp, because some people always take advantage of the seasonal swamp during when the rains are low, then the land will be dry and they'll take advantage of that. They'll do some bit of irrigation there. and therefore we'll have few settlements. In a situation where we have a papyrus swamp, we will have no settlements there because it is waterlogging throughout the year. The last one is near some rivers. And we should not make a general statement that along rivers there are few settlements. We have some rivers that will have linear settlements or settlements along those rivers. They could be using those waters to do some irrigation, and therefore they will want to live along the river. Where we will have no or few settlements is when a river is in the old state, and the river can break its banks, and floodplains can occur. In such places, we'll have few. Reason is possibility of flooding. How relief affects settlement? The guidelines are there. Rugged areas, few or no settlements, and you give a justification. Difficult to construct house. Now I need to make this clear because there is always some confusion, some sort of. How do you tell on a map that the area is rugged? How do you tell that? You will always tell by the contours, yes, are close, but they should be irregular. What do I mean when I say irregular? Of course, a hill, we expect that the contours could be close. Lakini ukiangalia the contours, they are kind of zigzagging. Kidogo tu, it is irregular. That is a landscape that is described as rugged. We should differentiate between a rugged area and a steep area. Because a steep area can as well be rugged. But not all steep areas are rugged. You've not heard. I have said we need to differentiate between a rugged area and a steep area. It is possible to have a steep area and still be rugged. Now, a steep area is just like the contours are close. That is a steep area. A rugged area is the contours, yes, are close, but they are irregular. And in the two, we have few, or in some instances, no settlements there. Now, when we have these guidelines, whichever map you are given, yours is just to give us the evidence. Where have you seen the steep slopes? Is it in the northwestern, southeastern, southwest? Your point is just to give us the evidence. Where have you seen them? Now tell us rugged areas in the northwest, depending on the map, there are few settlements. Why? It is difficult to construct a house. Also identify from the map provided. It could be Kisumu East, it could be Yimbo, Taita Hills, Tambach, and even this year will be different. And even your year, 2026, it will be a different map. Yours is to equip yourself with these guidelines and apply in a map that it will provide. Gentle sloping areas. The evidence is model this space contours and tell us where have you seen it. It is not enough to tell us the contours are moderately spaced. No, tell us where have you seen those moderately spaced contours? Where have you seen them? Is it to the northeast? That is the evidence. And the justification is it is easy to construct a house. The other justification can be it allows mechanization. The other point is crops do well in such an area, and therefore we'll have many settlements there. Depending on whichever you choose, whether you want to argue from a perspective of, it allows a variety of crops, whether you want to say it is easy to construct a house, or you say it allows mechanization, that we will always take that. Now, the same relief, you can still ask your question. How does relief affect transport? How does relief affect transport? The same relief. In areas where we have an area that is hilly, will always have very few roads. And it is for obvious reasons. The reason is the cost implication of constructing a road in a hilly area. You'll have to have many meanders, and that will make the road longer. And the longer the road, it makes it expensive. The same thing applies in an escarpment. You'll have very few roads. In an escarpment, and all of us, I think, most of us, they've gone through Mai Mahiu. You can see all those many meanders. A road that possibly could have been 10 or so kilometers, because of those bends, will make it maybe up to 30. The cost implication. In an area that has gentle slope, many roads. Remember, hilly escarpments, gentle river valleys, depressions, cliffs, all describe how a land is, and that is relief. In an area that is hilly or an escarpment, we will have very many river valleys. We'll have very many river valleys. Constructing a road in such an area will therefore mean that you'll have to construct many bridges. And constructing even one is so costly. And therefore, where we have river valleys, we will have very few roads. The same thing applies to the depressions. A depression is the opposite of a heat. We will have few or even no roads because, again, of the cost implication. A cliff, no roads. Steep, rugged areas, there are few or no roads. All describe how this animal called relief affects transport. You'll be very lucky if examiners asks you economic factors on a given map. Then yours will be always telling us there is crop farming as evidenced by a named crop. But examiners are now changing tack. They now want you to give evidences and factors for an economic factor, for an economic activity. Agriculture ranges between crop farming, dairy farming. Yes. What are the factors? The factor is high rainfall. How do you tell that on a map the area receives high rainfall? You will deduce that by the number or the density of permanent rivers in that area. If there are many permanent rivers, then the place is likely to be receiving high rain. If there is a forest, the area is likely to be receiving high rain. The evidences for high rainfall is permanent rivers, forests, or even in some instances, the crop being grown there. For example, we have tea on that map provided. No, tea does well in an area that receives high rain. The other factor for agriculture is gentle sloping. The evidence is widely spaced contours. Mostly widely, it is moderate. This one allows mechanization, cool conditions. The altitude of a place determines whether it is the place is hot or cool. An area that has contours above 1,000 is generally termed as an highland. But in some instances, we could be having even 2,000, around 1,800. Then the place receives cool conditions. There is dense settlements. For agriculture, crop farming or dairy farming, you need markets. Where do you get your market? You get your market from the dense settlements. So if you see many settlements, if you see dense settlements, then it is an indicator that whichever crop or agriculture, then you will have market for the same crops or even products and animal products. Well drained, this is an undulating area. It is a gentle sloping. Many roads, some of these goods are perishable, so they need to get to the market with the shortest time possible. Veterinary services, they give essential, they give advice on, they advise the farmers on how to deal with a certain pest, a disease. Generally, they advise farmers on aspects that touches on agriculture. If you see a veterinary service, then they offer extension services to the farmers, and they will in turn affect agriculture. Realize that we are giving factors or evidences that supports trading. If there are many roads, whether it is all weathered or maram roads, all those are factors for trade. There are dense settlements, that it means we have market for products. Processing factories, they yield to finished goods that can be sold in those markets. If we have agriculture, commodities or tea farms, that it means the same tea, the same sugar cane, will give product like sugar that will be sold within the same market. Urbanization, for example, Kisumu East, on the Kisumu East map, where we had the Kisumu municipality. They will have many settlements, and in turn, it will boost trade. I think we had discussed this. Evidences that the area receives high rainfall, but for emphasis, what are the indicators? Indicator number one is presence of permanent rivers, and there should be many. The other one is presence of forests. Like we had said, it is in the indicator that the area receives high rainfall. Those of us who come from Kakamega, Mau, Aberdares, Mount Kenya, where we have forests basically, they will always tell you that we have in such areas, there is high rainfall. High altitude is a possibility that the area receives high rainfall. The assumption here would be the area is on the windward side of the mountain. That is why we say is a possibility. So there is the other possibility that it could be on the leeward side. But at this point, we don't want to overthink. The cash crop being grown, like we said, tea, coffee, those are crops that requires high rain. Lumbering or sawmilling. What are the factors? Extensive forest. Number two, transport roads or railway that passes through the extensive forest. In some instances, again, there could be some roads that ends abruptly in the forest. Those are roads that are used to transport the log, the cut log. If you ever find a forest that doesn't have a road that passes through it, neither does it have roads that ends abruptly, then that forest there is no lumbering. Probably it could be a catchment area. If we have an extensive forest and we have roads passing through those areas, then now you can now go ahead and tell us there is a possibility of lumbering. Markets, and this one you'll get from the many settlements. Any area that has many settlements, then that is a market for those products. The location of Kisumu East, we could have asked you, what were the factors for the location of Kisumu municipality? One is water from the rivers. And once school reopens, make sure you get the map of Kisumu East and analyze if these factors are in play. There were many rivers passing close to Kisumu municipality. There we have many settlements, and therefore what will be needed for domestic purposes. There will be many industries there, social amenities, which again requires good supply of water. And you'll get this from rivers. It should be gently sloping area. One, no, we'll have to construct many roads there. We'll have to build houses or structures, and therefore, in an area that has gently sloping, it's quite easy. We could be having a tourist attraction, and for Kisumu East map, then we had the existence of Lake Victoria. So it is a tourist attraction. There were 10 settlements. There were many settlements. and therefore, it will boost trade, and therefore the town can still grow. Now, economic activities, we have communication. What are the evidences that tells that we have communication in the map? We should have a post office, have telephones, we should have lines or satellites. Those are indicators that we have communication in the map. If none of these exist, then we don't have communication in that map. Crop farming, we have plantations, we have farms, for example, sugarcane farm, we have tea plantations, we have posho mills and millers. Those are indicators that we have crop farming. Dairy farming, the indicators are we have a dairy, fodder crops, creameries, we have a kettle dip, fishing. If, for example, we have a water body and we don't have any of those evidences, then there could be a possibility that the water body is, is not a fresh water. It could be Lake Bogoria, it could be Lake Nakuru. For us to say that we have fishing in a water body, then we should have fisheries. We should have some place where we have fishing nets, making of boats and fish nets, filleting industry, jitteries and pairs. Those are the evidences of fishing. Forestry is an economic activity. The evidences are presence of a forest, one, forest reserve, forest stations. Now, for is the repetition of number one, and a guard post. Livestock farming, we should have a cattle dip, a veterinary service, a water trap, lumbering. How do you tell that we have lumbering on a map? We should have a lumberjug, we should have a sawmill, jacklock yards, herb factory, and that there are roads that ends abruptly. Unaangalia tu barabara inaenda mpaka kwa forest, then naisha tu, then that is an indicator of lumbering. The same road that I'm talking about are used to transport the logs from the factory, from the forest to maybe the pulp factories. Many of you will always confuse between mining and quarrying. For us to say that we have mining in a map, then we have to have unnamed mineral. For example, copper mining, gold mining, limestone mining. That way, we will now make a conclusion that we have mining. We could be having a mineral work. Then that is an evidence of mining. Now, quarrying is different from mining. The evidence on a map is we have a Maran pit, we have a named quarry. For example, quarry X, quarry W, depending on that map. So kindly take note. Tourism still is an economic activity. If you see a guest house on a map, then it is an indicator of tourism as an economic activity. Game parks or game reserves. Trading, what are the evidences? Beside the one that are highlighted there is presence of a named crop. Transportation, those are the evidences. Any type of a road or a port, railway, motorable road, or even trucks. That is a question that is so familiar to everyone. It was in your end of term examination. And nearly half of you got it wrong. You were told to give the functions of Kisumu municipality. And many of you wrote educational service, healthcare services, religious services. If the question demands you to give a function, you tell us educational center and give us an evidence of a school, the name of that school, and even the grid square that you've seen it. Healthcare center is a function of a certain municipality. Identify a dispensary, a hospital, and even give us the grid square where you've seen that hospital or dispensary. A religious center, where have you seen that mosque? Where have you seen that temple? Where have you seen that church? Where have you seen that shrine? If you've seen any of those, then tell us it is a religious center. It is a function of that area or that municipality. We could also have administrative, it can be administrative center. The moment you see a chief's camp or a chief's office, a DO's office, PO's office, those are administrative offices. Security center, if you see a police station, It is a security center. Trading center. See those many markets? Social services. The points are the same. But you know, when you are told a service, tell us administrative or administration service. If it is a function, you say administrative center. We are talking about social services. And therefore, point number one is administrative service. That is when you see a DC's office, you see a chief's office, PO's office. Burial services. The moment you see a morgue, funeral homes, cemetery, those are indicators of burial services. Educational services, you see schools, colleges, and other institutions. Medical or healthcare services. See health centers, you see dispensaries, you see hospitals. But make sure you give us the great squares you are seeing those hospitals. What else that we have recreational services? You see stadiums, golf service, golf courses, playgrounds. Those are indicators of recreational services. Now, I had requested we have an extension of this lesson because the first 30 minutes we lost it because of some technical issues. So I request you to be a little bit patient so that we are able to finish up with these maps and map work. Rehabilitation services. What makes you feel like we have rehabilitation service there? Rehabilitation centers will guide us. Religious services, we have a mosque, we have churches, shrines, temples, or any other area that is used to worship. Veterinary services, once you see a veterinary office on a map, then you can say we have veterinary services. Water services, see water tanks, water pipes, boreholes, those are water services. Security services, a police station or a police post. We are looking at maps and map. And if you look at the distribution of the 25 marks, maybe I can say it is divided into the first part that has between 6 to 8 marks, where we have the marginal information. No, whereas I don't have much problems in this area, because you always do well in these areas. But I want to take you through how maps and mapworks are tested. For you to really gauge yourself, out of the 6 or so marks, how many marks are you able to get? Now I call it petty legendary questions of a mapwork, where you are told to give the name, you are told to give the title, and because I want you to get the 25 out of 25, I don't want to make an assumption that we know that the 5 or so marks. What is the difference between the title and the map? Because that is where we have a challenge. You've done the maps of Kisumu East, Yimbo, Taita Hills, Tambaj, Mumias East. Those are names of maps. So the next time you will be asked that question is now tell us whether you've been given the map of Kisumu East. Now the title is, to your left, top part is, we'll only have East Africa 1 is to 50,000, Kenya. Then that is the title. Now, all these legendary questions, like I've indicated there, they are on the margins on the map. Hata hujaanza kufanya map work. So yours is just but copy and paste. You can be asked, when was the map edited? You don't have to think. It is always on the right-hand corner, the top right-hand corner. The same applies to series and the sheet numbers. You can also be told to give the indices adjoining the map slightly above the key on the left side of a map. Those are where we have the indices adjoining the map. Yours just got copy. They're always around 12. So ukiulizwa mbili, Uko na 12 choices, you choose the two that you like most. You can even write the 12 and he'll still give you the two marks. Administrative regions or boundaries. We don't have to be losing such marks because no, some people will always ask themselves, I've never been to Kisumu East. Which district or which county is it in? The answers are still in the marginal areas. Where the map has been derived from will always be indicated. And again, it is to your left part, the bottom, slightly above the key. That is where you'll find regional administrative regions or boundaries. Now, in the 20 minutes or so, I just want to highlight on some key areas that you need to focus on in fieldwork. I always consider this as a strategy. And you need to ask yourself this question. Have you ever done an exam in geography for one that doesn't have fieldwork? I'll tell you no. You can even go ahead and look at those past KCSE questions. You will never miss questions on fieldwork. You'll never. Then, therefore, we should be very sure of this mark that we know that they be tested. And you'll always see that I put a lot of emphasis on fieldwork. But the technicality in fieldwork is you need to check the tense of the question. You can be asking this question. Students from Mangu High School are planning to do a field study on rocks within the school. They are still planning. Your response to the question that will be asked thereafter is you should check the tense. The other one is students conducted a field study. This is something that has been done. So your responses again should be in line with the tense of the study. If it was done, hata vile unajibu majibu yako ionekane kwamba ilishafanyika. We don't have much problems here because it's a short topic. But I needed to highlight on the point that I've just said. checking on the tense of the question. The other problem that I need, the other area that I need to focus is problems of field study. No, you were told students from three, maybe Dayton went for a field study in the nearby market. What were some of the problems they are likely to face? Now listen carefully. You should always attach a problem to the problem or the challenge that it posed to the study. I'll give an example. We have accidents or injuries in the field study. How did it affect the study? Many of you will always talk at there were incidences or injuries or accidents in the field study. Then you'll find that you'll mark it wrong. Why? Because you've not given us how it affected the study. Now, maybe we should make it a bit interactive, a bit as we close this. Now, and especially on the problems and how we should write your answers. I would want someone to give us a problem on accidents and or how does accidents affect the field study? Can we have someone giving us a problem for the study? Yes, I've seen Danzel Namara. You can unmute yourself and tell us how you should write your answers. Denzel, you can unmute.
Accidents, they lead to, we can say, the accident might lead to the destruction of the transporting vehicle, or the, should we say, what they're using to move to the area of study. Thus, it will limit the study, in that they'll not be able to reach the area of study. Thus, the study will not be done.
On the accidents, I think I lost you, but I wanted to. Of course, I've heard what Denzel talked about. But in an event of an accident, it will stop. The field study. No, nothing else will continue. No, we are attaching the problem of accidents to the challenge it poses to the study itself. Attack by wild animals like snakes, insects, or any other wild animal. No, the problem itself. What did it pose to the study? You avoided those areas whereby you think like we could have those insects. Limiting the study. The problem is it's sort of become limited. The intention earlier was to cover the entire part. But because of the attack, you begin avoiding some areas. No, the other challenge could be difficulty in penetrating. The place had thick vegetation, and therefore penetrating was a bit of a challenge. It therefore slowed the field study. You are not able to cover all the intended areas because of the thick vegetation. We had a heavy rainfall, so you therefore needed to take shelter. It temporarily stopped the study. No, the fact that we had rainfall temporarily stopped the study. And that is how we want you to be presenting your answers, by telling us the problem and how it's challenged or it poses a challenge to the study. I think that guideline is very important, and it has been missing in your presentations. In the circumstances that we are in, we've tried to somehow help us maybe have a good understanding of what is required of us. And even as we reopen the school, my emphasis will always be in areas that we know that will be tested. Let's make sure that we score the maximum. Fieldwork, maps and map work. Let us capitalize on that. Because I tell you, if you get a 15 or less than 15 in maps and map work, then forget getting an A. And maps and map work, they're more or less, I don't know the relationship, but it is more or less like what we do in math. If you fail to practice, then it is very difficult to get a good score. Always practice, always practice, always practice. So I explore everyone here to be doing more practice and engaging your teachers to check whether you are doing the correct thing. I want to thank all of you for being patient. To this end. So let's meet in the next lesson. Thank you.